Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'll start with the recitation of Holy Quran then. Please recite salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. Please recite another salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad وعجل فرجهم. افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو سرننگ وہ ماں بہنوں کا دربار میں جانا سجاد سے پوچھو چھپتی تھی نبی زادی کے پیچھے کس شرم و حیا سے چھپتی تھی نبی زادی کے پیچھے کس شرم و حیا سے اور شمر کا ان بیبیوں کے نام بتانا سجاد سے پوچھو بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے سادات کھڑے تھے بیٹھے ہوئے دربار میں سب چھوٹے بڑے تھے سادات کھڑے تھے سرتشت میں رکھا ہوا زینب کو دکھانا سجاد سے پوچھو جب دختر شبیر نے زندہ میں قضا کی آفت کی گھڑی تھی، جب دختر شبیر نے زندہ میں قضا کی آفت کی گھڑی تھی، وہ ننھی سی میت بندھے ہاتھوں سے اٹھانا سجاد سے پوچھو، جب غسل سکینہ کو وہاں دے چکی غسال، تھا سب کا برا حال، جب غسل سکینہ کو وہاں دے چکی غسال، تھا سب کا برا حال، اس ننھی سی میت پہ نشان رسی کے پانا سجاد سے پوچھو، افسوس نبی زادیوں کا شام میں جانا، سجاد سے پوچھو۔ اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی محمد وعجل فرجہم۔ Thank you.
اور کوئی پڑھنے والے ہیں؟ اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ من اول الدنیا الى فنائها ومن الآخرة الى بقائها، الحمد للہ على كل نعمة واستغفر اللہ من كل ذنب واتوب الیہ وهو ارحم الراحمین، وصلی اللہ علی سیدنا ونبینا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى اہل بیتہ الاطیبین الانجبین، بهم نتولى ومن اعدائهم نتبرأ الى اللہ، اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا، Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to make this majlis a majlis of nur, a majlis that remains an asset for us in our graves, in Barzakh and in Qiyamah. And this bonding that we have with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, Ilahi, by Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, never ever cease away from us even for a moment. May that be here or in the hereafter. It's the night of the Shahadat of our fourth Imam, the one of the most Mazloom. All of the Aimma were Mazloom. The Imam, born in the year 38 after Hijrah, on the 15th of Jamadi ul-Ula, and then his Shahadat is either the 12th or the 25th of this month of Muharram, the year 95 after Hijrah. Lives for 56 years. And his sacred shrine, which doesn't exist, his grave or his burial place is in Baqi, and that shrine also was ruined and destroyed by this faithless lot, La'natullahi alayhim ajma'in. Imam, he lived in the worst of times. Politically, the rulers also, the worst of the rulers, pressure, torture. 35 years of imamat was the duration of his imamat, and then he carried out the mission of tabligh and propagation in the best of possible ways that he had. Now, it is not hidden to anyone that the time that Imam was living was immediately after Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, where these rulers, they had stood openly and embarked on a war with Sayyid al-Shuhada, killed him, and then the incident that took place in Medina where 10,000 and more of the Muslims were killed, and then the attack on the holy Kaaba by Yazid la'natullahi alayh. And after him it is Abdul Malik bin Marwan. This also another ruthless ruler that he was ruling at the time of the Imam alayhi salam. So the rulers, the hukam who were at that time, the first was Yazid, and then it's Abdul Malik bin Marwan, Abdullah bin Zubair, and then Abdul Malik bin Marwan. All of them, they had the height of hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and somehow or the other, they hurt the Imam in many ways. Abdul Malik bin Marwan is the son of Marwan. When he took the charge of Iraq, he gave the charge to Hajjaj bin Yusuf, la'natullahi alayh, who had the most hatred towards the Shias and then mostly inhabited in Kufa. He killed a lot of the Shias there. In his prisons, the prisoners were fed chalk, lime, salt instead of food and water. And in his 20 years of rule of horror and terror, he killed in excess of 120,000 Shias. 120,000 of them were kept bare naked in the worst of situations in their prisons. And Imam was living in this very tough and difficult time in these aspects. Hajjaj, Lanatullahi alayh, he elevated the rank of Abdul Malik bin Marwan more than the Prophet, and he was a whole soul puppet of the Bani Umayyah, La'natullahi alayhim. And before Iraq, he was the ruler of Medina for 2 years. And despite nothing from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had remained, he insulted the mihrab, the member of the Prophet. He engraved and burnt the necks of the Prophet's companions. Among them are Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, Sahl Sa'idi, and then Anas bin Malik, and many more. An era where, when from Islam only its name had remained, fear, fright, torture, all virtues and merits had vanished, and Islam was used for worldly gains only. And it was an era which of decline of the values that Rasulullah had brought forth, Amirul Mu'mineen had preached, Abu Abdullah Hussein had sacrificed for, and one of the singers who had clubs and messing with the two sexes centers sang. This was time like that where Imam was living. And in such a tense situation, we see that Sayyid al-Sajidin, Zain al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Hussein, alayhi salatu wassalam, he performed his mission of tabligh in different ways because no public presentation was permitted, was allowed for the Imam, no Jumas, no khutbahs, nothing whatsoever. And then Imam, he educated people by du'as, by reciting the Quran, tafsir of Quran. That also in his beautiful voice within his home, he used to recite Quran loud, and people they used to stand behind the door of his house and listen to what how the recitation of Imam is. He had durus tafsir for his family members, and that also he used to conduct them in with a loud voice, and people they used to stand outside his house and listen to what the Imam is teaching them. Likewise, it was the era of du'as because Abdul Malik bin Marwan and all these ruthless rulers, their endeavor was to somehow remove the name of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad from every salawat also. That is, that was the time when Ali Muhammad mentioning in salawat, there was a penalty that, that people had to give. Here, Imam, his emphasis in Sahifa Sajjadiyah, in the du'as that are reported from the Imam alayhi salam, he he made it sure that every dua starts with salawat. That if you open up the Sahifa Sajjadiyah, the Psalms of Islam, or the other du'as that are reported from the Imam, you would see that there are definitely a few salawat in it. Like, for example, Dua Makarim al Akhlaq, every few phrases Imam mentions, and then there is a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. These daily du'as that we have for every day, they are also reported from the Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. So Imam, one of the other tasks that he did and to promote and to propagate deen, that he used to buy slaves and then teach them, educate them, and then free them. So these were all muballighin and propagators that were raised and educated by the Imam alayhi salam, and in excess of 100,000 slaves and maids were freed by the Imam, all of them educated, and then he used to free them. That is how he promoted this deen and this investment of Rasulullah and Sayyid al-Shahadat. It went forth. Now, the topic that we have for tonight is wafa, and that is loyalty to the divine allegiance that we have with Allah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. We have an allegiance, we have a ahad which we have to fulfill. Now, in fulfilling this ahad, sometimes we see that there are so many tests and trials, so many masa'ib, maybe in the form of these material problems that we see, maybe health issues that may trigger every now and then, or maybe financial losses, job losses, education, spouses, all these problems and mishaps that we have in this dunya. But now, the time that we are living in, it's a wholesale market of all these mishaps and turbulences, grievances, griefs, and problems, and this pandemic, which is a blanket cover for everyone on every problem. Now, when you know and we analyze this world, we come to know that tests and trials are only for this dunya, for this world that we are living in. And we should know that dunya, trials are there. We shouldn't be losing hope because of these tests and trials and masa'ib. In fact, we have to be smart that we benefit from these tests and trials that we are going through. If we know that the dunya and its calculations, we can benefit from these balas, from these tests, from these problems. Dunya, it is not the heaven. And we cannot have those expectations that we have from the heaven here in this dunya. Because in the heaven, there is no difficulty, there is no pain, there is no love, there is No problem whatsoever. There is no death. There is no illness. Nothing. Quran says the heaven, it is Darul Aman. It's the house of safety. Darus Salam. It is the house of peace. And there will be no pain, no illness, no grief, no debt, no death, nothing whatsoever. So it's going to be only ease, comfort, and happiness. Quran says, وَلَهُمْ مَا يَشْتَهُونَ. Whatever you desire there, it will be at your disposal. Whatever you want, it will be granted to you. So all the tests and trials are for this dunya. So we here in this dunya shouldn't expect anything but these tests and trials. Now, to make it even simpler and to understand in a better way, we have all these games and these tournaments that children they play, the grown-ups they play. Now, in all these games and tournaments, they work hard. There are rules that are binding to those games. Like, for example, the soccer or football. These footballers, they run around, they break their bones, they fell. So it's a test that they are going through. No one objects. No one says anything. They are playing, either they win or they lose. Now, if he fails and if he injures himself in this game, he never gets upset because it is part of the game and it is among the rules of the game that he has to be like that. He has to play, he has to win, he has to lose, he has to break his bones, he has to fail, he has to go through all these tests and trials. Dunya is also the same. When we know that there are some rules to live in this dunya, then we submit to them, to those rules. We submit to that style of living. That is, we have to go through a phase of tests and trials all the way through. And no one gets upset with God. Why did he? And no one breaks ties with God also. Now that I know that it's tests and trials, masa'ib that I have to go through, if a mishap does befell upon me, I have no problem. I have nothing to worry. So there are difficulties in this life, and a successful man is one who has no problems with these difficulties. If one has no problems, then God too has nothing to do with him. Now, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he once visits a Yehudi in Medina. He sat in that yard and he sees that there is a pigeon that has laid an egg on the wall, and that egg, it rolled and rolled, came to a smaller wall, and then from there another wall, and then dropped on the floor, and the egg did not crack. The Prophet was astonished and amazed at seeing that. How come that egg was laid up there, rolled all the way through the walls, and dropped on the floor and did not crack, did not break? Now the host over here, he says, Ya Rasulullah, in my house nothing breaks, nothing cracks. Everything is as it is. No pots and pans, no nothing breaking, cracking. Rasulullah, he stood and he said, we have to leave. This is not our place to live. A place where there is no bala, no mercy of Allah descends. So in all these tests and trials, we have mercy of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, which is with it, which comes with that entire package. Now, in this beautiful poem that we have from Saadi, says, Silsile muye dost halqiye dame balas, har ke dar in halqe neest, farigh az in majaras. The hair of my friend, now here addressing to the Almighty God, sees the hair locks are all trials that we have in this world. Someone not amidst these traps is not in this tournament. گر بزنندم به تیغ در نظرش بی دریغ دیدن او یک نظر صد چو منش خون بهاست. If I'm slaughtered and if I'm beheaded, I don't care. Just a glance at my friend is worth 100 sacrifices of mine. This is something we see in Karbala. The Ashab of Imam, they came, they gave those sermons, that we are with you, Ibn Rasulullah, even if we were sacrificed and we were brought back to life and burnt into ashes, and the worst of killings was given to us, we will be with you. So they are prepared for those tests and trials. Now, amidst these balas and tests, there has been uh, no mishap, no mistake, no flaw in this creation. All everything that we see is well designed and well calculated by Allah wa ta'ala, the wise. So He has designed everything. So even the problems that come in our life, there is a benefit in it. People, they look at it in a positive way. I'll give you an example to make this understand, and that is Ayatullah al-Uzma Reza Bahauddini, one of the Maraji at-Taqlid, who passed away in the 1998. About 40 years ago, this incident takes place. He travels to Mashhad, and there, after the ziyarat of Imam Rida alayhi salam, when he comes to sit in the car, and when they want to come out of the car after getting to their destination, someone closed the door and his hand was on the roof and his fingers, they get stuck in the car. It's those olden day cars that were made with iron, with steel. Doors were heavy, not like today, plastic and fiberglass, light, no weight. So his fingers, they get caught in the door, and those people who were with him, they stopped the car and they wanted to beat up the driver. Said, why did he do that? He says, don't do that. This is what I wanted from Imam Rida alayhi salam, and that is what he has given. Is what did you want? I asked Imam to give me rida, that is contentment, how to be happy in whatever situation that comes forth. And this is the first test of that test that I am giving to Allah Ta'ala. That is the test of rida, that is being happy and content with whatever unfolds before us. So we have an allegiance with Allah Ta'ala, and with that allegiance we have to be loyal. Allama Tabatabai Rahmatullahi alayh, the author of Tafsir al-Mizan, he also went through a lot of tests and trials all over his life. Now this also bear that in mind. It isn't as such that people, they have to go through tests and trials throughout their lives. No, these tough ones, they are once in a while, once in a decade, once in a few decades, once in a few years. It's not permanent that every person has to be tested. No, that also is based on the capacity. Now, Allama Tabatabai, at the age of 5, he lost his mother. At the age of 9, he lost his father. He stayed in Najaf for about 18 years. And then he lost 3 children in Najaf. And the only one that was surviving, I think he passed away just recently. Abdul Baqi was the name, because all of his children were dying. He comes to his Ustad. Ustad says, name him Abdul Baqi, the servant of Baqi. Baqi is the name of Allah Ta'ala, who remains, and this one he remained. Now, it was a time when he was struggling financially. There was a war between Iran and Iraq, and he never used any of the Sahne Imam that was there. Neither did he take any scholarship from the Hawzas. He had some funds in Iran from his farm, and that was sent to him, and that was physically, someone had to bring that money from Tabriz and deliver it to him in Najaf. So because of this war and all the borders shut, he was struggling financially. And then a time came that he couldn't, he borrowed so much from everyone. Now he started selling whatever he had, selling his belongings at home, selling his books, and then comes to a point where cannot resist anymore, comes and complains to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And after a while, he comes home and said, I did bad. I shouldn't have complained to my master, to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Says, I was sitting on my desk, and at that very moment, I heard someone knock at the door. And I went and opened the door, and it was someone who wasn't of this time that I was living in, someone with an attire of centuries ago. His name was Shah Hussein Wali. He spoke to me and he said that God has sent his salam to you and has said that in these 18 years, when did we neglect you? Your rizq was upon me and we always provided you. Now he says that I was not sure. I wasn't asleep. I was awake. I was sitting on my desk. And I know that I went and I opened the door, but then I see that I'm sitting here. Now these mukashifat and these visions, they do take place that man in his barzakhi form, he communicates, these interactions, they take place. So anyway, he went and opened the door, he got the message and an envelope of money that this money will be with you and it will be sufficient for you for the duration of your stay here in Najaf. Now, two questions were there in my mind. Who is this person, Shah Hussein Wali, who came to deliver me, give this message and deliver these funds? And then what is this 18 years? Says that I started calculating my age at that time was 32. I was in Najaf for 9 years. And then for 22 years, I've been a student. So what is this 18? And then he says that 18 was the year since the day I dressed into the attire of Rasulullah, that is Mu'ammam, and wore the Amama. That is 18 years, and Allah says, I had a special eye upon you. Now, his seerah was that twice every week he used to visit the graveyards. Uh, and then when he returned to Tabriz after his studies and his stay in Najaf, says that as my I was in the graveyard and I come across a grave, and on it was written Shah Hussein Wali, one of the Urafa, one of the mystics who had passed away 300 years ago. So Allah, when He wants certain things to happen, all these people, although they have passed away, but then they have been designated for certain tasks. Now, this great personality, Allama Tamatawai, he says, I was sitting and after my Fajr prayers, and Hazrat Idris, the Prophet, alayhi salam, he comes and he taught me, and many of these ma'arif were delivered to me. A great personality, which no one of us can ever understand. So he has meetings with the Anbiya. Says once I was offering this wutaira, that is the 2 rakat prayer that we offer after the Isha prayers in the sitting posture, and I recited Surat Saad in that prayer. Says I saw that I was taken to the skies, and that river Saad, which is in the heaven, Nahrun fil Jannah, it was shown to me, and I returned back to this dunya. Says that when my wife, a very honorable, very noble lady, a simple lady, but because of that love she had towards the family and the children and the husband and all the services that she used to provide, she also was given a lot by Allah. Allah Matamatawai says that on the day of Ashura, she was reciting Ziyarat Ashura, and when she comes to the salams, Assalamu alayki ya Aba Abdullah, says, I heard the reply of the salam of Abu Abdullah and Hussein to my wife. And says that once we were together in the haram of Hazrat Ma'suma Salamullahi alayha, there she is reciting the ziyarat to in the haram, addressing Hazrat Ma'suma Salamullahi alayha. Allama Tamatawai says that I heard the reply of Hazrat Ma'suma to my wife. So because of the services which she provided, she also was benefited from those special blessings of Allah wa ta'ala. Now, if Allama Tamatawai gets to that rank, it's all that hard work and all those riyaziyat and riyazat that he has gone through, he can. But she, because of sincere services that she provides. Now, we have an allegiance with Allah. We have to abide by it. All these turbulences, these problems, they will come across in our life and it will never end. It will be there as long as we are here. Again, when we look into the seerah of our great ulama, one of them is Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Hasan Isfahani. Now, he wanted to study. Father was reluctant, says that you are too young. His age is just 12 years old. Says you're too young and you can't live on your own. There's so much of difficult time there. You have cooking, cleaning, washing, and then heating, everything. You can't do it. He says he insists. The son insists. And then father says, okay, you can go. And he enrolls him in the madrasa there in Isfahan. And it was cold, heavy snow. His funds also have ended. There is nothing to heat up in the room, no wood, no timber, no candles also to light in the room. Now he was worried, a 12-year-old child, how much. Then he was says that if I could say to my father, he's going to get upset. Said I knew that you shouldn't be going there. You went on your own. It's your on your own responsibility. Says I didn't even complain and go back home. Says to my astonishment, that evening someone knocked at the door. I opened the door and it was my father. And when he saw my fate here in the madrasa, that is, there is no candle to light, it's dark, there is nothing to heat, it's extremely cold, nothing to eat in that room. Father, he told him off, and not the son. And he said, just now, right now, you pack up and we have to go home. That very moment, now the son also, he says that I couldn't say anything to my dad, my age, his age, I'm young, and then I had to submit. And then I had a tawassul. Within my heart, I called Imam al-Asr alayhi salam. And he says someone knocked at the door. The khadim, the caretaker of the madrasa, he comes and says that there's someone for you at the door. I said, Abul Hassan. Sayyid, he goes there and he says that this is some money for you. He gives some food to him, and then says that there is candle in the room on the shelf. You don't know where it is. On that side, gives him the address where these things are. And go and take care of your guest who has come to you, who's visiting you. Be good to him. Now he also comes and says, father says, who was it? Says, I don't know. He said there is candle in the room, and he gave me the address. And they find the candle is there. And he said, be good to your guest. The moment the father hears that the son has said, someone at the door said to him, be good to your guest, he starts pleading and crying, saying, son, forgive me. I was bad to you. I was harsh to you. That was Imam al-Asr alayhi salatu wassalam, who was at the door, who has given me, it was a message to me that I have to be good to you. And then this great alim, he studies there and becomes the best of the maraja of his time. The books that he has written are being taught. And now another test comes in his life, but that was when he was young, now at the age of marja'iyat. Now here, a very difficult test. It was the World War II. It has ended, and Germans, they have been defeated. The prime minister in Iraq at that time is Nuri Saeed. Nuri Saeed says that comes and visits Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Hassan and says that the British ambassador, he wants to see you. He wants to meet you. He was reluctant. He did not allow. He did not allow. Then upon the emphasis and repeated requests from the British ambassador, Nuri Saeed, he comes to Ayatollah Abul Hassan Isfahani and says that he wants to meet. He says, okay, on a condition I will meet him. It has to be in the open, in front of everyone. You with your delegation and all these businessmen that are in the bazaars here in Najaf, they have to be there. It's going to be open with my students also, they will be there. He accepts. The British ambassador also comes in that meeting. Now look at this beautiful statement and what these Britishers do. Now he comes and says to Ayatollah, first of all, thank you for this meeting and allowing me to meet you. Says, I had a nazr, I had a vow. Then we, the Britishers, we had a vow, a nazr. What was that nazr? That is, if the Germans were defeated, we had vowed to give 100,000 dinars to you for the Hawza of Najaf. It's the nazr of the British government, If the Germans are defeated, we will give the Hausa of Najaf 100,000 dinar. 100,000 dinar, I don't know how many million billion dollars in today's conversion it would be. Now this Ayatollah, he takes the check from him, keeps it, and all of them, they are seeing, he puts that check under his mattress where he was sitting. Now when the meeting ended, he says that I have something to tell you. Says, what is that? And that is, we know that you are going through a very tough time after this World War II. And yeah, there is famine there in the United Kingdom, and people, they are struggling. This 100,000 dinar is a gift from us, the Hausa of Najaf, to you, the Britishers. Now, upon this, and, uh, um, and the meeting ended. After the meeting, the premier, that is Nuri Said, he returns, falls on the knees of this great alim, kisses his hands and feet, and says, you don't know what happened. After the meeting, when I went out, this British ambassador, he said to me that we came here with this 100,000 dinars to buy the Marja'iyat and the Hausa and the Shias with this 100,000 dinars, but he bought us all with that 100,000 dinars. The students over there, they said that, why did you do that in this very tense time that we did need funds and money? He says that when I looked into that, what is wajib on me in this very delicate phase of time, says that was the best tabligh and propagation that could have been done, and that is by paying that money to them. So this allegiance that we have with Allah in all these difficult tests and trials, we have to be extra shrewd, extra smart, very vigilant that we don't fall in the traps that are laid. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now, one of the Urafa who passed away just recently, his name is Marhum Agha Tulabi. He used to say that Allah, He has Turo, Taro, Tir. Tar means instruments, musical instruments. Tur means traps, like these traps that are used for fishing. Tir means arrows and needles. Says Allah Ta'ala, to fulfill his mission of guidance, he's got all three of these. Tur, Tar, Tir, instruments and traps, arrows. Now, what is this tar? That is the instruments. Says it's all these tunes that are divine, like the recitations of Quran, which are such beautiful. Marsiyas, Munajat, Nohas, and all these are the tunes that we have. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, he says that there is a tree in the heaven, and when the wind blows and it comes across this tree and the leaves of this tree, there says a music emerges from that wind and getting in contact with that tree that no dweller of the earth can ever hear or be able to listen to it. It's such beautiful. Says that there are hadiths also regarding that. Now, one who has protected himself from haram musics in this dunya, he will be benefited and he will be blessed with that music and that tree in the akhirah. So, traps that like that he has laid are these majalis of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, the month of Muharram, Safar, Ramadan al-Mubarak, fasting, a good spouse, a good family, a good book, masjid, Husainiyas, all these are traps that Allah lays. That somehow He wants to catch them, catch these mu'mineen, the people, so that they are revived and they are received and they are guided and forgiven. He has tir, that is, He has arrows and He has needles, He has spears, and they are these balas that we have, the problems that we see. Awliya, they did not ask for these balas for them to be tested. But when they came to them, they welcomed them, they greeted them. There is one of the ulama buried in Mashhad is Shaykh Bahai, the most qualified person of his time, and the haram of the Imam, it was all designed and built. He was an architect, he designed that haram, and many of these beautiful mosques that are there, even that Masjid Gauhar Shad, or many of the monuments that we have in Isfahan, All of them, they were designed by this great alim. He was also a poet. He says that should dilam asude chun tiram zadi, ey sarat gardam chara diram zadi. Says, I'm happy that you shot me to God. When these afflictions and problems and balas used to come to him, he says that I'm happy you shot me. May I be sacrificed unto you. Why did you delay? Should dilam asude chun tiram zadi, ey sarat gardam chara diram zadi. A hunter, when he wants to hunt, he aims at that target. For example, you want to hunt a deer or a kangaroo or a bear, whatever you want to hunt. So you aim at that target. We don't aim at those pigeons and those doves that are around. We aim at that target. So balas that befell upon us means that Allah has aimed at us. Allah wanted that bala to come to me. So if Allah has intended something for me, a mishap for me, so it is from someone who is that Kareem, that Arhamur Rahimeen, that generous, that gracious, that merciful. He has intended me. Now we'd say musibat. Musibat, the literal meaning of musibat is from asaba. Asaba means to hit, to aim. So Allah, He has aimed me. Allah, He has intended me. So when He has intended me, there's nothing to worry. It is something beautiful. So I got happy that Allah Ta'ala, He has intended me. That is why we see in Quran, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. That is, when a mishap, when an affliction visits them, what do they say? Inna lillah. That is, we belong to Allah. And wa inna ilayhi raji'un. ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها إن ذلك على الله يسير. So when all these afflictions, they do visit us, says all of that has been written in the book. That was written way before. في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها. That is, all of that has been written way in advance, and that is easy for Allah. And then in the following ayah says, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ كُلَّ مُخْتَالٍ فَخُورٍ. So that you may not grieve for what escapes you, nor boast for what comes your way, and Allah does not like any swaggering braggart. So, example is, if we lose someone dies in our family, or if I had a rank, a position which is lost, or there was a substantial loss in my business, I lost funds, whatever. Allah wants to teach us how to handle these difficult situations. Now, what is that situation? We have to have that sense of ownership with Allah, not to these things, these attachments. So being attached to a job, being attached to a rank, being attached to some money, to some business, that's cheap. Being attached to the existence of Allah Ta'ala, that is the aim. That is, He is the owner. He designed this problem for me just to see whether I'm attached to Him or to this wealth, to Him or to this job. So I belong to Him, sense of belonging should be to Him. Now look at the seerah of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. He says that in this life of mine, the first 10 to 13 years, it was all difficulty. I saw only difficulty in those 13 years. The second phase of my life, that was in Medina, 10 years I was there, 80 battles I participated. No part of my body was safe. So many cuts and wounds and bruises. Nothing was safe on my body. Bones broken, so on and so forth. And the third phase of my life is after the Prophet, which is the worst of all. And the first thing which befalls upon me is the tragedy which unfolds on my house, where the house is attacked. My Zahra, she is hit and hurt. So all those problems, and the worst of all of these problems were in this third phase. Imam says, ما رأيت منذ بعث الله محمدا رخاء لقد أخافتني قريش صغيرا وأن سبتني كبيرا. Says, I never saw any ease. It was always these mishaps, always these balas. Now, someone who has seen a package of balas all of his life, all these three phases, what does he say? He says, فَكَانَتْ الطَّامَّةُ الْكُبْرَى وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. And Allah is the one who should be sought for help. فَلَمْ أَرَى بِحَمْدِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا خَيْرًا. Says, by the grace of Allah, all praise belongs to Him. I saw only khair, only good, only beautiful. That is the same thing that Zainab al-Kubra says, that although she's seen so much, and all those different difficult phases that she has gone through throughout her life, and on the day of Ashura, that and after that, in the quotes of Ibn Ziyad la'natullahi alayh, when he says that how did you see what God did to you and how he killed your brother, she says, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, I saw everything beautiful. Now this is someone who has been raised by five Ahlul Bayt. Rasulullah, Hazrat Fatima, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Mujtaba, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Now, the Urafa, the great ulama that we have, they say that if someone was a student of Marhum Ayatullah Qazi Tabatabai, who died in 1947, if he saw him and he was a student of his just for 2 years, he would get to those high ranks and maqamat. That is an ordinary servant among the dust of the, not even the dust of the feet of the Ma'sumin alayhi salam. Someone sees him, gets to those ranks. Now Zainab Kubra is someone who's seen five Ma'sumin. She has been raised by Rasulullah, by Amir al-Mu'min, by Hazrat Fatima, by Imam Mujtaba, by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. She's learned something from every one of them. From Rasulullah, she learned the Ma'rifah. She's known as Aqilat Bani Hashim. From Amir al-Mu'mineen, that might, that bravery, that shaja'at, that in the Majlis of Ibn Ziyad, that Mal'un, when they were all hyphenated in giving the messages about Karbala. Now here, this Mal'un says, addressing Hazrat Zainab, Alhamdulillah alladhi fadhahakum wa akdhaba uhdusatakum, that disgraced, all praise belongs to Allah, to God, who has disgraced you and who made known your falsehood and your lies, and He killed your men. Now she is someone in captivity in Esarats, and he is in the height of his pride in power, drowned in all these charms and beauties of this world, and she with all might and bravery says, فقالت الحمد لله الذي أكرمنا بنبيه محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وطهرنا من الرجس تطهيرا. All praise belongs to Allah, who exalted us by His Prophet, and that is Muhammad. Upon him be the salutations of Allah, and upon his progeny. And he is the one who purified us from every indecency, from every rijs. And then she says that he, that fasiq, that liar, the sinner, is the liar, not us. Now this is the bravery that she has learned from from Abu Abdullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Now from Imam, from Hazrat Zahra salamullah alayha, she has learned that chastity, being chaste, that haya, that iffat. That here, the historians, they say that even when she wanted to pay a visit to the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Amir al-Mu'mineen used to take her at night so that no one sees where Zainab is, who Zainab is, how she is. From Imam Mujtaba alayhi salam, she learns sabr, patience. And in this ziyarat nahiya that we recite, but ajabat min sabrika malaikatus samawat, that is, the angels in the skies were amazed at seeing your patience, your sabr. They say that this is being mentioned and addressed to Hazrat Zainab salamullahi alayha, who learned that sabr from Imam Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. And from Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, she learned so much. She is that learns the honor, that izzat. She is Sharikatul Hussein, the partner of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, resembles Abu Abdullah al-Hussein the most in everything. Now, propagation of deen, although it was by the blood of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, but the perfection of this deen was due to the pains and griefs and efforts and all these tests and trials that Zainab al-Kubra, she went through. Now, these days that when we look into the maqatil, there we see that when Imam Sajjad alayhi salam was inquired, where was the most painful? Throughout this journey of yours, he says, Asham, Asham, Asham. Sham was the most painful. That the household of Rasulullah be taken into captivity with all that pain, with all that difficulty, seated on camels without saddles, and then uh, chained, handcuffed, and also it was one chain, and all of these Usara, the captives of the noble household, they were tied in that one chain. And in that chain, we had all these toddlers and infants who were of a smaller height, and they also used to get dragged when these older people they used to walk in those chains. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, whenever he used to see water, he used to cry. When they used to slaughter animals, he used to cry. The servant, he says that I brought some iftar for the Imam. He was fasting. And upon seeing that bread and that water, Imam wept so much. I said to him, Imam, is it not time that you stop crying? You've cried enough. Imam says that how can I not cry? Yusuf, a son, or among one of the sons of Yaqub, he went missing and he cried for 40 years. He lost his eyes. And that son also came back to him. And everything in my life perished in front of before my eyes in less than a day. And you want me not to cry. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إلهي بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وآل محمد وأمتنا ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ارزقنا في الدنيا زيارة محمد وآل محمد وفي الآخرة شفاعة محمد وآل محمد. For all those who are alienating Ilahi by Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, grant them shifa. All those who have requested for du'as, Allah fulfill their hajat, grant whatsoever they want. All those who have departed, Allah forgive them, elevate their ranks. Ilahi, hasten in the return of our Imam, our Master, our Hujjah, and count us all among the best of His servants and those who seek Shahadat in His service. وعجل في فرج مولانا صاحب الزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ماتم حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Sham ka bazar, abid bimar. Sham ka bazar, abid bimar. पाँव में बेड़ी तो के गराबार शाम का बाजार आबिद बीमार भूलेगा न वो मंजर नेज़े पे सरे सरवर बेमकना बेचादर बलवे में फुपी मादर और मजमाए कुफ्फार आबिद बीमार शाम का बाजार आबिद बीमार دربار میں سروریاں آتے ہیں حرم گریاں اٹھنے لگا ایک طوفان محشر کا ہے ساہے یہ سما جنبش میں ہے دربار عابد بیمار کچھ شمر سے فرما دو گردن میری کھلوا دو سر بابا کا دلوا دو اور اس سے یہ فرما دو مارے نہ ستمگار عابد بیمار کہنے لگی پھر رو کر پیاری ہے اگر دختر آ جائیے ہاتھوں پر سب دیکھ لے یہ منظر الفت کا ہو اظہار عابد بیمار بو پائی تو گھبرا کر بچی نے کہا رو کر اس تشت میں ہے جو سر وہ تو ہے سرے سرور کیسے کروں دیدار عابد بیمار سر جا کے اٹھاؤں میں یا پاس بلاؤں میں روداد سناؤں میں سینے سے لگاؤں میں دیکھے بھرا دربار عابد بیمار جب بابا کا سر پایا دل بچی کا بھر آیا ہر ظلم کو دہرایا لوگوں نے جو سن پایا آنکھیں ہوئی خون بار عابد بیمار زندہ میں انی سے غم کرتے ہیں حرم ماتم ماں پوچھتی ہے پہ ہم کیوں آنکھ ہے یہ پرنم کیا مر گئی دلدار عابد بیمار شام کا بازار عابد بیمار پاؤں میں بیڑی تو کے گر بار شام کا بازار عابد بیمار اللہم صلی اللہ
اور کوئی ہے پڑھنے والا؟ اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن، بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، يا شريك القرآن، يا قاطع البرهان، يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك، وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات. صلى الله. تقبل الله. Thank you.